Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Ann Welsh. She is a clinical psychologist, executive coach, and consultant. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ann.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome to the show, Dr. Ann. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the world will benefit from what we are talking about. We'll be talking about career, parenting, and work life balance. So, let me ask you this. Let me understand from you, Dr. And is that you talk about, turning parenting into a masterclass in leadership. I thought when you come home, you leave everything about work or even about leadership behavior, you become a child with your child. So, how does that leadership come into parenting? Help us understand leadership and parenting together.
Yeah, well, a lot of what I help folks realize and companies realize is that it is parenting that makes us better leaders, right? I think historically we've thought of parenting as interfering with our work sometimes, right? Or that these are two different categories that do not overlap. And yet, in parenting, we gain a lot of important skills. And I call them the 4 Ps of parental leadership lessons. So the first P that I talk about is people skills, things like empathy and emotional intelligence, humility, empowerment, right? As a parent, you have to make enormous strides in reading and regulating emotions for yourself and for your children and communicating them. So these are those soft skills that we often talk about making an excellent leader. The second P is processing skills, things like decisiveness, prioritization, adaptability, right? The idea here is that as a parent, you are constantly drinking from the fire hose, right? You're taking in so much new information all of the time about parenting, about your children, and you have to really quickly process it and act on it. And so that's actually a great skill to have as a leader, right? The ability to take in a bunch of information and make a decision. The third P that I talk about is productivity skills, like the skills that help you just get the job done, right? I always say if you want something done, give it to a working mother because she will figure out how to do it in the most efficient way possible. Another word for thinking of this is tenacity, right? You have no spare time, A, so you have to use it really well. And B, you have to work really hard to get a toddler to do anything, right? And those same skills help you motivate your team in terms of getting colleagues or employees or direct reports to do things. And then the last P that I talk about is perspective taking. As a parent, we are constantly having to multitask on some level and see both the big picture and the small details. And those are really important skills at work. I like to use the example of taking your kids to the beach, right? You need to think ahead about who needs snacks when, and what's the temperature, and where's the sunscreen, and what time is nap time, so that we have to make sure we get home for nap time, and where are the towels, and where are the toys, and all of these things, let alone carrying all of this equipment to the beach, takes a lot of mental effort to plan ahead. And we kind of do it without realizing that that's a skill as a parent. And yet that's exactly what project management is when you are in a workplace setting, right? That anticipating needs, making sure that things happen. So all of these P's are ways in which we gain skills and we think of them as just parenting things, but really, if you stop and think about it, they're all skills that are incredibly valuable in the workplace. And I help parents understand that they are bringing something to the table with all of this. And I like to help companies realize that their working parents are an incredible asset and that they really need to do a lot to support them.
Right, Doctor. And so, in terms of uh, mother and father, mom and dad, who do you focus on? You talk more about the mom part of it. So, is it only about the mother, or is it about the father too? Because in today's time, a working mom has a very different way of looking at the work part of it, and there because even if you want to give more time to balancing your work life as well as home life, the work demands are much more. And then there you also want to do justice with your career. So how can you bring those leadership skills to actually put them use on the ground? Because you will be getting pulled in both directions. So if it's about the mom, then what is the role of the dad here? How can they help bring about that comfort to the lady of the house, that she is able to manage both the things? So everyone has a role to play. What would you like to tell for all these three pillars? Even the children, nowadays children understand at an early age, for the children, for the mom, for the dad, so that there is a very great atmosphere and everyone is able to achieve the best that they intend to do for everyone. Help us in that aspect so that it becomes easy for people to understand.
That's an excellent question. I think I tend to work more with working mothers, and partly that's because some of my executive coaching is helping women succeed in traditionally male-oriented spaces. So things like STEM, finance, law. However, I also do a lot of something called fair play coaching, which is basically addressing your exact question. Fair play coaching says, how can we get dads more involved at home so that the domestic labor really is evenly split? And the concept or the idea is that there's no reason that mom has to do all of these things, right? Women are not inherently better at multitasking. We are not inherently better at doing bath time with our kids or making the grocery list. There's a lot of gender socialization that has happened that says women should do this and men work. And that plays out in the workplace, where then there's assumptions that women are going to step back and that men are not when they have kids. And all of that is just a thought, right? None of those are actually facts. With fair play, what the idea is, let's lay out all the cards on the table in terms of what the tasks are that we need to do, and let's divide it in a more equitable way. So essentially, dad has to step up. And to your point, as kids get older, they can too, right? Recognizing that my kids can empty and load the dishwasher. I'm not going to inherently be better at it than they are. And it's a great life skill for them to learn, right? Or my kids can be responsible for doing some menu planning for the week and figuring out what we're going to eat. I don't have to do that for them. Now, granted, with children, you have to come up with an age appropriate task, but kids can start helping pretty early in all of that as well.
Right, right. Now, in terms of workplaces, companies, how can they come to help, in establishing a better work-life balance because this space is already getting very challenged because of the great resignation. You see, people, it's the outcome, the great resignation is one of the uh, outcomes of the difficult workplaces that have become. People are not able to achieve that sort of work life balance, achieve that sort of things that they want to achieve from workplaces. So it is a challenging thing also for the workplaces to come in good and aid these people, especially parents, working parents, to achieve their goal of a very happy home. So what is it that companies can do, and what is it that is possible for them to do? And we are not asking for too much. That also we have to see.
Yeah, no, I think that's what you just said is so important, right? It's not a huge ask, and small things can go a long way. So the very first thing I like to say is I want companies to start creating a culture of care, right? One where there is respect and trust that your workers, including your working parents, want to do their best and succeed, and that they are going to put in the effort. Now, maybe I leave my office at 4:45 to get the daycare pickup at 5:30, but you better believe I'm going to sign on and finish the work that I haven't gotten to that day in the evening or after kids go to bed, because I care about my job, right? And so if we start it broadly with this culture of assuming the best and respecting our workers and respecting our working parents, that's going to go a long way. And then within that, some really tangible stuff. One is flexibility, and that goes with that trust, right? Flexibility of when you work the hours you're required to work, of maybe where the work is done or how the work is done. Within that is supporting remote work and flexibility around work as needed. I think flexibility goes a huge way with working parents, especially this winter. I've seen so many of my clients where kids are just constantly sick and they have to take a little extra time off or juggle a doctor's appointment, and they're wanting to get their work done, and they are. It just might not look like your traditional 9 to 5.
Right.
Another piece is making sure that employers have really strong parental leave and caregiving leave policies, right? So that they are gender neutral. Both parents should be able to access leave. And if companies are wanting to be really kind of cutting edge around this, I advocate that they include parental leave coaching, which is a service that I provide, and there are other providers as well, where we actually do executive coaching to support an expectant parent prior to going on leave in terms of planning how that's going to look, during their leave, while they're out, and then after leave as they reacclimate to work and to their company. And then the other piece that companies can add in is childcare benefits. Childcare is incredibly expensive. It is a huge part of the picture when thinking about returning to work after having children. And so any support or help in that process is warranted. And there's lots of different ways that companies can do that, including paying for some of the care, but also backup care, flexibility, different consultants that they can hire that can help parents navigate the childcare situation. So there's a whole bunch of ways to support that as well.
Right, right, doctor. And let me ask it this way: what are the challenges that working parents face with their workplaces? Let me see if something new comes out of this.
Yeah, looking at it from the other end, right? I think the biggest challenge is feeling like they're either not respected or that there isn't the flexibility that they need, right? It can feel, especially for people that became parents during COVID when all work was remote, they kind of designed their work around the ability to work at home or to take off for 20 minutes when needed, or to save that, maybe 2 hours of their day that's spent commuting. And so to lose all of that right now, as we see companies issuing these return to work policies, can be really frustrating, especially when it doesn't feel like there's necessarily a purpose to them being in the office. I see working parents totally respectful and willing to go in if they're going in and there are in-person meetings happening and brainstorming sessions and there's value to it. Where I see a lot of frustration is working parents returning to the office just to have to Zoom with people all day anyway, because most of their colleagues are in other offices, or there's no consistency, there's no expectation around how people are in the office. It can feel like, why did I give 2 hours of my commute and those hours that I could have been spending working or with my kids to showing up in this office space? So those are kind of the bigger complaints I hear from parents.
Right, right. Now let's look at the burnout aspect. A lot of parents, mostly they work in different companies. So several times it can be that one company is good, a bit flexible, the other company is not. And in certain cases, it will be that both the companies that they are working are not so great. And that is this big pressure about work and work all the time. And amidst that, you have to manage this. As a clinical psychologist, as an executive coach, how do you look at this and how do they manage this burnout part along with the parenting part, which cannot be compromised with? That's a huge thing to manage at the same time. How should they look at it for those people who are facing any of this problem?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people will ask about work-life balance and how we manage that all. And so one of the things I suggest that people do is shift from thinking about balance as some sort of magical state. Like, if I just did it exactly right, I'd somehow find the exact place of work time and family time that would feel sustainable, right? Balance isn't a state. Balance is a process over time, right? If you think about it, if you stand on one foot, right? I do yoga, right? So if I'm doing yoga and doing a balanced posture, I'm not staying still. I'm actually making micro adjustments the entire time I'm in that space. And that's what our work life is going to be when we're parents, or just when we're juggling a lot of things. And part of that is recognizing that you might lean one way or the other, or say no, or set boundaries around things for a time and for a season, right? That we get to pick and choose what we focus on, and it's okay to say no to some things. So maybe both parents are at crunch times at work and they have really intense hours, and they say, okay, this is a season where we're going to have a lot to do on our plate at work. Where can we outsource around the house and around our children? Where can we ask for help? And where can we say no? Maybe that means right now we're so busy, I don't do any volunteering at my kids' school. I don't, dinner is a lot of takeout, or we hire someone to cook food for us. And it's going to look like that for a month because that's just where we are. But I know on the other side of that month, maybe I'll ease the other way. Or, simultaneously, maybe it looks the other way. It looks like my kid really needs me right now. They're really sick, or they're really having a hard time, and they're really struggling. And so I have to try to pull back a little bit at work and recognize that, maybe my work is going to be at 80% right now, and that's going to have to be okay. That doesn't mean that's the rest of my life. That means it's this season, right? And that season could last a week or a month or a year, but it won't be permanent. And kind of recognizing we're going to be moving around in how we navigate this, and that there's no perfect. No matter what we do, it's not going to look perfect, and we can't aim for that. And so having a lot of grace and forgiveness with ourselves.
Right, doctor. And there is much to learn about these things, and I'm sure a lot can be learned from you, including from your coaching program that you have specifically for working mothers. So tell us a bit more about the program so that people can make use of it.
Sure. Yeah. In addition to doing individual coaching, I have a group coaching program for working mothers called Working Mothers Lifeline. And it is for mothers of any age children, and you might work part-time or full-time or anywhere in between. But we have monthly calls and one-on-one calls, monthly calls as a group, and one-on-one calls with me, and ongoing Voxer and Slack support throughout. And we talk about a lot of the things we just talked about: burnout, stress, how to manage those things, boundary setting. But I think the real magic is, because of the group, you also get to connect with other working mothers who are struggling with the same things. And it's so helpful to realize you're not alone, right? That this stuff is hard because it's hard, not because you're doing something wrong. And I love fostering those connections between working mothers, and getting to see everybody get support, not just from me, but from each other. And I have actively filling up my next cohort. So if people are interested, please reach out. I'd love to have you join us. And if this one fills up, I'll launch another one as soon as we get enough people. So it's kind of an ongoing process as people connect and ask for the extra support.
Right, doctor. And so what is the best way to connect for the coaching part, and especially also to connect with you, to learn more about you, and to also connect about your clinical psychologist and executive coaching part?
Yes, great. My website is www.drannwelsh.com. And people can also find me on Instagram. It's dr.welsh.coaching. Or on LinkedIn, it's Dr. Ann Welsh. So any of those ways are great ways to reach out and get in touch. I would love to hear from you.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.